Are you preparing for a job as a cloud architect, administrator, data engineer, or data architect? If yes, then this video is for you. In many cloud related interviews, questions about building strong and scalable database systems on cloud come up. Why? Because businesses need systems that can handle large amounts of data easily. And Amazon RDS is perfect for this. Big companies like Netflix and Airbnb use Amazon RDS to manage their databases efficiently. And in this video, we'll explain how Amazon RDS works and show you how it makes things easy like automatic backups, handling failures, and scaling up as needed. We'll also show you how to set up MySQL database using RDS so your system can grow without worrying about maintenance. Also, if you're looking for a similar job or not sure where to start, make sure to join our free AWS job-oriented masterclass. In this class, we'll teach you a proven 3-step framework that has helped people like Renga and Kennedy get their dream cloud jobs. So don't miss out. Click the link below to register.
Now with RDS, which is a PaaS service of Amazon, an example of platform as a service of Amazon, 90% of the management task is done by AWS. It is the AWS which will maintain the physical server, mount it into rack, connect it to the stack, power, heat ventilation and cooling, network, operating system installation, operating system patching, DB software installation. Here, you as a customer will give only the input that I want MySQL. Installing the MySQL, patching the MySQL, configuring the high availability and scalability with backups for the MySQL is done by AWS. You will just ask for the platform which will be able to support MySQL to run properly. You as a customer will be able to securely connect to the MySQL which is installed, and you don't have to worry about all this work which is being done in the background. You will just connect to MySQL and do your work. That's it. So this is your RDS service, which is a PaaS offering by Amazon. Amazon RDS, relational database service, which manages your relational databases. As I told you, what all is being taken care by AWS. In this, a very beautiful feature can be created by RDS just on a click, and that is automatic failure detection and recovery. In RDS, what they have is they have options for various engines with which RDS can work. And with all of them, we get a ability, we get an ability where we will be able to create a highly available setup. In the highly available setup, what will be there? Like suppose say you have got a VPC. In the VPC, you have already got the subnets created. Now you have got the subnets for your application. You have got subnets for your database. already created. We have already set it up this thing in our environment, right? So in AWS, what you can do is, with the help of just one click, see, we don't need and we don't have to talk about the application subnets, so we can even remove them from the picture. But we know that the application subnets exists. We will be now talking about the database subnet. So we create a subnet always associated with the availability zone. Right now in our VPC, we have got one database subnet that we created. Remember the VPC we created? Let me take you to the live page. Over here on the VPC dashboard, we will go to Oregon region, where the VPC that has been created by us is there. If I see the resource map, we see that there are three subnets. Two are for web server subnets, and only one subnet is there for the database, which is mapped with US West 2A availability zone. This is our database subnet 1. In AWS, if you have got two database subnets, or let's maybe discuss about three database subnets also, one each availability zone. If you have got subnets, then you can have a ability to configure the high availability between the subnets for your database. What you will be doing is, you will be creating one of the subnet in US East 2A, one of the subnet in West 2A, 2B, and 2C. And you can instruct Amazon to play the high availability game between these subnets, in which if you launch a primary DB server in your subnet for database, like you can name it as DB primary subnet, DB secondary subnet, and DB tertiary subnet. Database DR, right? So we can name it any. But in the high availability, what we can achieve is, if you have got server, which is your database server, in one of the availability zones with one of the subnets, like suppose say for us it is database primary subnet, with the service RDS, the volume or the storage which is attached with your database whatever data is into it, this volume is replicated across 3 availability zones of Amazon by default. If you configure it to be kept in the 3 availability zones. And if your database server crashes, Amazon will immediately launch another server for you so that you can have the same data associated with your new server, and Amazon will be able to help you out with the failure which has occurred. With one click in AWS, you can configure a standby instance for your primary machine, which will be sitting in another availability zone altogether. And between this primary and the standby, it is Amazon who will configure asynchronous replication. This replication will be automatically configured by Amazon, where one-way replication of the data means in one directional, not two directional. So it is basically the direction from the primary towards the replica. The replication is configured. If this server goes down, it is automatically identified that the failure has occurred, and standby instance will be promoted to the active server, where already all the information which was there on this is there. So your infrastructure, in case of failure, can become available as soon, like as quick as 30 seconds in case of failures. The replication latency between the primary DB and the secondary DB depends upon the type of DB you select, which we will discuss while we are seeing all the options which are available. In fact, you can even have a configuration where, like, normally the primary server which is active all the time, and there will be a secondary standby server which is passive all the time, means all your read and write requests are being entertained by the active server only by default. But in Amazon, you can configure that the read and write requests can happen on this database, but this passive server can also act as a read replica for your setup, where all the information which is available here is anyways available on this. You can use this server for executing the reports and reading operations. So it can act as a read replica. No write operation will be performed. Only read operations can be transferred through this server, so that if the load is high on the primary server, it can be shared by the secondary. By default, it is active and it is passive. But if you want, you can have an active scenario that can be configured. And in fact, you can have more than one read replicas kept in different regions. Sorry, kept in different availability zones of the VPC. And in fact, I'm not wrong when I say region, because yes, you can keep your read replica all together in a different region also. Your read replica can be created here also in another region. And the synchronization will be done between both the servers automatically by AWS. Whatever is there on your active server will be replicated on the read replica. So you can perform read operations from this server. How it is done, we will see it in a while. Just understand the concepts that in RDS, relational database service, you can have this setup where automatic failure can be detected and the recovery can be done by migrating your requests to the passive server. One time full backups can be taken in a scheduled way, or they can be taken and on demand also. So these type of databases are mainly used for your e-commerce websites, gaming applications, app launches, websites, if the database is required. So RDS is a good choice in that case. You can deploy a database on MySQL. You can deploy a database on PostGRE. You can deploy a database on MariaDB. All these databases that I discussed are your community edition databases. Means the databases, the software for the database, sorry, not the databases. The software for the database is being managed by a community, and there is no license charge to use this database that you need to pay. If you want to have extensive support from the community, then the paid service can be taken from them. Otherwise, for using the database, you don't have to pay anything. We have got commercial databases also, like your Amazon SQL server, Microsoft SQL server, Oracle DB, and Amazon Aurora. These all are your community edition, sorry, commercial edition softwares. In this, you need to pay for using this database also. Like this name, Microsoft and Oracle, is a well heard name. That these two are the providers of DB services, and they give you enterprise grade of database solution which is more robust, more scalable, and there are many more features which are developed by your MySQL and Oracle, for which they take money. You call them as enterprise database softwares, a feature rich one. which is provided by MySQL and Oracle. These options are also available in RDS for AWS. Amazon himself has created one database, Amazon Aurora, which gives you features like an enterprise database servers, but the cost is lower as compared to SQL and Oracle. In this, your database could be a MySQL inspired DB or PostGRE inspired DB. Amazon gives you Aurora deployment for MySQL and Aurora deployment for PostGRE, in which it is a fully managed database service by AWS. Fully managed database service. In RDS, it's a PaaS offering. In Aurora, it becomes your fully managed service for database. These are the different RDS options which are available. If I take you to the live page and let's prepare our VPC to be able to deploy this kind of setup, we need two more DB subnets so we can create them simply. We know that one of the database subnet is created by us, which is using the IP schema 172.16.20.0/24, whereas the another subnet, the web server subnet 1 and the web server subnet 2, these subnets are using 172.16.10.0/24 and 11.0/24. So for the database subnet, I need to choose which is not being yet used by my subnets. So then I have to go to the subnets and we will create the subnet in our Sage VPC for my DB subnet 2, which I will create in 2B, and 172.16.20 is used by my DB subnet 1. I'll use 21.0/24. I will add one more subnet, DB subnet 3, which I will create in US West 2C, and 172.16.20 is used by DB subnet 1. 21 is used by DB subnet 2. So let me use 22.0/24 for my DB subnet 3. So like this, I have created DB subnet 2 and DB subnet 3. We were already having DB subnet 1 for our environment. My DB subnet 1 is associated with the DB route table. So I will also associate my DB subnet 2 and 3 to the same routing table, the DB routing table. I will go on the routing table, click on action, and I will edit the subnet associations, where apart from DB subnet 1, I will choose 2 and 3 also to be members of the same table. I'll click on Save Association, and now if you see, by refreshing the page, you'll be able to see that for my VPC in the resource map, I have got three subnets associated with my DB routing table scattered across three availability zones. And now, if we want to work with the databases, we will be required to go in the database relevant service RDS. This is your RDS. You can right click and open it up in the new tab. Where now you can create the DB subnet. Sorry. Yeah, you can create the DB subnets. From where? From here. We have got this default database subnet created. You will also have the same. You can create your DB subnet group for your Sage VPC. Which belongs to the Sage VPC. And I'll say that DB subnet 2, 1, and 3 are members of my DB subnet group. So whenever the active, standby, or tertiary databases are required to be created, they can be created in any one of these subnets which belongs to the DB subnet group. I need to provide the description also over here. Let's give something. And create. And now you are all set to create the database. Let's have a quick break of 10 minutes. After the break, we will learn to create the database. We have created the playground, the VPC, and the subnets, and we created the DB subnet group also. Now, on this ready playground, we will launch our databases. So, now, before going on the break, we have prepared the playground for creating the RDS. Now, to launch the RDS, we can simply either restore some backup from the S3. Like suppose say you have got a database on premise. It can be the backup that can be created for the database, and we can store or upload that backup in our bucket. And then from the bucket, it can be directly restored as a database in cloud. Lift and shift migrations for small databases is possible in RDS. If you want to create a migration for the larger databases, then you have got this database migration service via which the migration of the large databases can be done. It can even help you to have a heterogeneous database migration that can be performed. That means you are at Oracle in on premise and you are moving to Microsoft SQL in cloud. So, schema conversions are facilitated in that DMS service. If it is a homogeneous migration, that means on premise also you are using MySQL, and in cloud also you are planning to use MySQL only, then the backup can be kept in the S3 bucket and you can simply restore your database from the bucket itself. If you want to create a new one, click on create database, and there are a lot of options that you need to select from this wizard that is in front of you. A lot of options are there. We will understand about them one by one. So first of all, it is asking you whether you want to create a standard create where you will set all the configuration options, or you want a easy create where Amazon will use the best practice configuration by himself. I said no, I will use the standard create. I want to see what all options are available. Going down, I will choose the engine types, whether I want SQL, PostGRE, MariaDB, the community edition databases. Community edition. This is also community edition. MariaDB is also community edition. So do I want to have the community edition database, or I want to have the commercial databases like Oracle, MySQL, IBM DB? What do I want? I can choose Aurora also, but I will come to Aurora later, because if you see, you have got, as I told you, that Aurora is MySQL compatible and PostGRE compatible. These are nothing but managed SQL databases and managed PostGRE databases. If it is a managed SQL database as compared to the community MySQL, you will get 5 times better throughput for MySQL and 3 times better throughput for PostGRE in comparison to the community edition PostGRE and MySQL. The Aurora gives you enterprise class features on your community edition databases. This is what Aurora is, where you will get lesser latency in maintaining the read replicas as compared. So we will come to it later. So let's create a simple RDS database in which I will choose my database to be of MySQL type. So out of all these engine types, we have selected one. What version do you want to use? You have got options for some older versions also, but the you know that this older versions are out of support. So you should stick to at least 3.2 and onwards for your database. Now Oracle 8.4, MySQL 8.4 is also there. So whichever you want to use, you can. Amazon has got templates, production template, development and testing template, and free tier templates. When you chose the free tier, automatically see these two options got disabled. So it will give you hands-on experience with limited resources, which falls under free tier. I will see the options being into production, and later I will launch the database under free tier only. So let's choose the options that we will get when we are creating a production DB, which is highly available, fast, and consistent in performance. Going down, I will choose the availability and durability option. So see, only one primary DB instance, that is known as single AZ deployment. In that, only one database instance will be there. No data redundancy will be available. In multi AZ DB instance, there will be one primary DB and there will be one standby DB. And the redundancy of data across the availability zones will be there. The uptime is same in both the cases. It is the data availability which has been increased. This one is a non-readable copy of this instance. So all the activities, read and write, both are required to be performed on this machine only. On this machine, it is a standby replica of this which will get activated if this goes down. Otherwise, all the operations are consolidated on this one only. In multi-AZDB cluster, there will be one primary instance and there will be two readable standby copies. These are readable copies. That means you can perform, write, and read both the operations on your primary and on your readable standbys. You can perform read operations. This book represents that. So it will eventually decrease your load on your primary server. So you have got single AZ, multi AZ, multi AZDB cluster. In single AZ, it will be only one instance. In multi AZ, there will be two instances. And in multi AZDB cluster, there will be three instances that will be there. This will give you increased read capacity and reduced latency on writes. Because here you have got redundancy that is spreaded across multiple availability zones, AZ1, AZ2, and AZ3. Like we created the three subnets for our database in three different availability zones. So your DB cluster can be only deployed if you have the three availability zones involved in the DB subnet group. If you have got only two subnets in two different availability zones, then you can only go up till multi-AZ DB cluster. Our VPC is ready for all the three. Whichever I want, I can choose. Like suppose say I chose multi-AZ DB instance deployment. So now it is asking me for the settings related to the database instance that I am creating. So there will be an instance dedicatedly created for my database. I won't be able to see to it, but I can connect to the MySQL created on it. So we can give some name to it. I will give it as name SageDB. The credentials that we are providing here are not the credentials for connecting to the instance. They are the credentials that will be used for connecting to the database. These are MySQL credentials. So username, admin, and I will go to the self-managed password and I will create the password Nisha12345 or Nisha #12345 and capital. You cannot use the symbols like / and @ rest you can use. In the instance configuration, it is like which family do you want to use. Usually for the databases, of MySQL type M family, R family, and X families are being used. The T is the free tier family. That's why it is over here. But otherwise, for the databases, these families are useful. If you click on show instance classes, which are supported by RDS for optimized writes, that means if you want to have a double throughput at no additional cost, then you can choose the DB instances which are optimized for faster reads and write operations. So these are the machines that you have. Like maybe I choose a very small one with 2 CPU and 8 GB RAM. You can see that this belongs to my M family, because M family, then these all M families, M6i, M7G, M7IDN, this whole M family is very much optimized for faster write operations. If you want only those machines to be listed, you can keep this tick on. Otherwise, you can turn it off. Let me keep it on. I'll go a little bit down. On this instance, the storage that is going to be attached. How much storage do you want? The minimum 100 GB is required. You can go up to 64 terabytes. So I said, okay, keep it 100. Which type of SSD is required? We have discussed about all these types. And this one, the IO optimized, is bringing me on the IO2 storage. GP2, GP3, IO1, IO2. It is bringing me to IO2 storages, because IO2, that means input output optimized storage. So I can choose the size, how much input output operations I want to get provisioned for my storage. So 3000 is default. You can increase it from 1000 to 2,56,000 IOPS per second. Obviously, additional charge will be there for higher number of IOPS that you want. Generally, you should stick to the default one if nothing has been specified. Go down regarding the additional storage configurations. You can enable the storage auto scaling. Like suppose say you have provisioned 100 GB of storage for your DB. You want to enable the auto scaling. This feature will allow the storage to increase if the storage consumption is crossing the threshold that you have specified. Then you can enable it. So from 100 GB, you can go up to, I said you can go up to 500 GB. 100 GB is the default. I said that by auto scaling, you can go up to 500 GB or maybe 1000 GB. Anything higher than the default storage. Our storage is 100, so it can go from 110 to the maximum capacity, that is 64 TB. Do you want a dedicated volume for keeping the logs? If yes, you can. So out of this 100 GB storage that we have allocated, a different volume will be chunked out, and that will be dedicatedly used for keeping the log separate. It is recommended for the larger databases to turn on these log volume settings, because in that case, the database transaction logs can be kept on a separate volume, which will not impact the right performance for your database. Or you can turn it off also, your choice. Let me keep it on. Regarding the connectivity, as I told you, in this, Amazon will create a database instance. This instance is AWS managed. You have no control on it. Just the MySQL, which is installed on your database. Just the MySQL, which is installed on the database, is something which can be connected with your users or by your app servers. They can communicate with the MySQL launched on the server. The credentials that we created, admin, and the password, is the credentials for connecting to this MySQL. I cannot connect to this DB instance because the database, by default, the database instance which is created is managed by AWS. If you choose this option, if you take this option, then the setup connection to the EC2 compute will be done through the instance provided by you. So you need to give the instance from which you need to set up the connection. If you choose this option, this will utilize Amazon instances for setting up the connection. You can use the dual stack mode for IP addressing, or you can stick to the IP version 4 only for your DB, depending upon your company decision. In which VPC do you want to create this DB? I said I want to create it in Sage VPC. And what is your DB subnet group? So I have created one inside which I have added my DB subnet 1, 2, and 3 to be part of it. So in any of those subnets, DB subnet 1, 2, or 3, my database instance will get created. Once you create the database subnet, you cannot change the VPC after creating. So choose it wisely. Do you want your database to be accessed publicly, or do you want your database to not to be accessed publicly? Okay. In traditional scenarios, we know that the table, routing table, which is associated with all the three subnets which are participating in the DB subnet group, all the three subnets are using this DB route table, wherein there is only a path 172.17.0.0/16 to be my local network is there. There is only one path by default. I can even show you. If you come here, this database routing table is not connected to the internet gateway. So these are private subnets. So usually in traditional environments, the database subnets are always private. And if my DB administrator sitting in my on-prem office or my DB administrator sitting in work from home location can access this database subnets only over the VPN. We have understood about the concept of VPN earlier. So they can establish a site to site VPN or a client site VPN, and via that, the administrator will be able to connect to the machine. Means they will be able to take the SSH for MySQL connectivity for the machine. If they have client site VPN or site to site VPN created. Yes, usually the database subnets are private subnets. But because if I proceed in the same scenario, I need to set up this VPN also to show you the connectivity to the database instances. That's why, as a small cheating, which you don't do it in the corporate environment, I just don't want to get into the hassle of creating the VPNs again. That's why I am temporarily adding a route in the routing table which will enable the connectivity to the internet gateway for my private subnet also. And now will say that my database will be publicly accessible so that we don't have to create the VPNs. That is the only reason we are doing it. If the VPN setup is already there for your company, then you can stick to no. I will, if required, I can choose the security group which I want to be connected to my this DB instance. So the port for MySQL has to be allowed on this Sage for Linux SG group, because this is the security group to which my database instance will be connected to, Sage for Linux. I will make sure that in the inbound rules for Sage for Linux, MySQL port is allowed, so that I should be able to take the connectivity of MySQL. If in this security group, port for MySQL, that is 3306, is not allowed, then I won't be able to get connected to my DB instance. So that's the reason I chose the security group. Going down, regarding, we will go to the port number details by clicking on additional configuration. Till now, to connect to the database, we are using the MySQL credentials that we have created in the beginning of the wizard. If you want the IAM roles or the secret manager to be able to provide you additional layer of security for your database, you can enable that. I'm just not keeping it on, and I'll go down in the authentication. Do you want the password authentication or IAM plus password and IAM plus Kerberos? I said that I just want the password based authentication. Monitoring standard insights. In Insights, you will be able to retain the performance history of 15 days. You will have fleet level monitoring and integration with CloudWatch will be there. With Standard, you will just have the 7 days performance history with an option to retain it for 24 months. Your choice. What do you want? With Insights, that means with lower retention for the performance history, you want the performance insights for your database in the dashboard, which will help you understand what is the wait time for your MySQL statements, hosts, and users. So then you can opt that, and later you can choose the key for encryption. You can enable the enhanced monitoring on your database. Your choice, yes or no. If it is enhanced, you can go below 60-second monitoring. If it is standard, then by default, the metrics will be polled every 60 seconds. Do you want to keep these additional log files in your log volume? If yes, proceed. In the additional configuration, you can give some name to your database instance, like I am giving Sage DB instance. Do you want the backups to be enabled? One time backups. If backups are enabled, what is the retention period of your backups and when the backup should be taken? Do you want the backup to be replicated in another region for the purpose of high availability? If yes, you can just enable this and choose the region where you want to keep your backup, which will be used for disaster recovery situation. Okay. You can do the minor version upgrade automatically in AWS DB systems. Like you have got 8.0.32 version installed for your MySQL. If there is a bug fix which is released by MySQL with 8.0.34 version, this is a bug fix. Some bug was reported which was fixed. So it is known as minor version upgrade. So this can be automated by clicking on automatically upgrade the new minor versions as and when they are released. If there is a new feature which is being added, then you will see the change in this number, like 8.4.0. Here it is again a minor version upgrade. Still, even if the change is on the second number, it's still a minor version upgrade because there are few new features that has been added in 8.4. But if it is 9.0.0, that means change in this number. That means at the architecture level, the software has been changed, which is said to be a major version release. It cannot be automated to upgrade your DB to these major version releases up till the minor. That means your bug fetch and the feature addition. These minor upgrades can be automatically applied to your database during the maintenance window. But your major version release updates are never automated. In our setup, we not even usually do the minor upgrades because sometimes these minor releases, the bug fixes, and the feature additions may also impact the functioning of our application. So, generally, it is kept disabled. You can enable the delete protection. That means no one will be able to delete your database from outside unless and until they come to the DB, edit the settings, and then remove this delete protection and then save the changes. Then only they will be able to delete the database, otherwise, not. If you create a database of this type, this is your monthly cost that you need to pay. You can see it over here. If I choose to go to my free tier deployment option rather than my other options, then my charges will be zeroed down, and by default only those settings will be chosen which are compatible with free tier. Just a minute, I got logged out, so I'm logging in again. So if I choose it to be free tier, then automatically only those options will be available which falls under free tier. Aurora do not fall under free tier, so I don't even have an option to go into free tier with Aurora. If I choose Aurora, the free tier option is not even available. So we should, if I take MySQL, then I can choose the free tier, and all the rest settings, like I cannot go for multi AZ or multi AZ DB cluster. I can only use the T family for my database. I cannot enable the auto scaling on the storage, should not ideally. And like this, many other settings will be limited, and you will not be charged for creating this database. You can have a database T2 micro, T3 micro, or T4G micro type with single AZDB deployment that can be deployed for free for 750 hours with 20 GB of storage primary and 20 GB of backup storage. If you deploy it in this way, then it will be free of cost for you.
So that's a detailed look at Amazon RDS, a service that makes database management much easier by automatically handling backups, scaling, and fixing problems. These are the key skills needed for jobs like cloud architect, cloud data engineer, or data administrator roles, which you'll find in many interviews. Also, to boost your career and get better at AWS, join our free AWS job-oriented masterclass. We'll help you get ready for interviews, build a strong cloud portfolio, and get the jobs that top companies are hiring for. Seats are limited, so sign up today. Also, if this video was helpful, like it, subscribe for more AWS tips, and also let us know in the comment section what topics you would like us to cover. Also, check out this video next.